Hello, I'm Sebastian Hernandez, and I'll be talking about the movie Mean Girls in relation to intrinsic and extrinsic motives. So, first, I'll talk about intrinsic and extrinsic motives. So, basically, extrinsic motivation basically refers to behavior that is driven by external rewards, such as money, fame, grades, and even praise. This type of motivation arises from outside of the individual as opposed to intrinsic motivation, which originates inside of the individual. Intrinsic motivation is an inner drive that propels a person to pursue an activity, not for external rewards, but because the action itself is enjoyable. You'll see when I explain everything how throughout the movie, a lot of her actions can go back to either intrinsic or extrinsic motives. So first, I'll talk about the movie itself and what like the plot is. So basically, the movie is about a girl, Katie Heron, who she's been homeschooled her entire life. Her parents are work in that field, so she's lived pretty much like the first 15 years of her life in the African jungle, and she's only lived with her parents and the animals in the wilderness, and she only knows the rules of survival. So eventually her when she's 15, her parents have to move back to the United States. So when she moves out of Africa into the United States, she has to basically learn the rules of high school, which is quote unquote like a jungle in itself. She basically has to learn like the social cues and like how high school works essentially with all that. So when she gets there, she instantly meets these two other teenagers, Damien and Janice, who, in terms of the high school, are like the out crowd, like they're not too popular. And eventually, she meets the Plastics, who are like the popular girls of the school. And it consists of Regina, who's like the pretty much the leader of the group, Gretchen, who is Regina's like she follows everything that Regina says, and Karen, as Damien quoted, is one of the dumbest people that you ever meet. So she's kind of just there. Um, they immediately let her into the group, but Katie is unsure of it because Janice told Regina to go against it, and she wanted to keep her first friends sure. So basically, uh, when Damien and Janice see that Katie has taken a liking to the Plastics, she basically tells them and convinces them that she can only basically keep her relationship with the Plastics so that they can know their secrets. And basically, her life turns into a mess because uh, Katie falls for Regina's ex-boyfriend, Aaron Samuels, and when Regina finds out, she seeks revenge of Katie by trying to take Aaron back. And when Katie finds out about that, what began as a simple, like, pretty much game to discover secrets, basically turns into a plan to destroy Regina George's life. So basically, the three of them, Katie, Janice, and Damien, plot together to bring down her status as a whole. And basically, throughout the movie, Katie spends more time with the Plastics, and she eventually pretty much becomes one of them and acts like them. So I'll talk about most of the actions that I'm about to talk about. I'll say how they're intrinsically or extrinsically motivated. So basically, in the movie, Janice warns Katie to not associate herself with the Plastics, and warns her about Regina George. Uh, with this action, Janice is extrinsically motivating Katie to stay away from Regina George, but because it's solely due to revenge purposes, not because she feels like it's right. Although Janice doesn't like uh, Regina and does think that Regina is like just a horrible person in general, she's not doing it for Katie, she's doing it solely to spite Regina. So moving on, eventually in the film, the plastics that Janice warned about invites her to sit with them at a lunch table to have a chat. And it's at that moment that the plastics decide that they take a liking of Katie and they want to add her to the friend group essentially to improve their social status. So Katie goes along with it at lunch or whatever, and afterwards, Janice finds out that Katie and the plastics are being friends, and she's quick to become angry because of what the plastics have done to her in the past. And it's at this moment that the two girls decide that Katie can basically use the plastics and destroy their clique from inside out. This action is extrinsically motivated because they're doing it solely for revenge purposes and to ruin their lives. In a side plot, Katie takes a liking of a boy named Aaron Samuels, and she wants to win over his affection. This is interesting because Regina George dated Aaron in the past, um, although she didn't know about it, and she didn't do it like she didn't take a liking of Aaron Samuels because Regina George liked him. She just liked Aaron. So this action as a whole is intrinsically motivated because she's not doing it to sabotage Regina's life. It just so happened that it aligned. She's doing it because she finds Aaron interesting and she genuinely takes a liking to him, and it makes her happy. Throughout the film, it's made very clear that what started out as a game to Katie with her hanging around the plastics and such kind of got to her head and affected her and how she saw herself to the school and everything like that. So throughout the film, it's shown that Katie will pretty much do anything to strive for popularity. Katie has been homeschooled her entire life, but she's actually really good at one subject, and that subject is math as a whole, especially at calculus. So she's so good at calculus that she's a junior and she's even taking senior levels calculus. So her teacher, Miss Norberry, notices this, like that Katie's really good, and asks her to join the mathletes. And she doesn't do it because she believes that it will ruin her social status. When she mentioned it to her friends, um, they were like, "Oh no, you can't do that because it's social suicide." They said. And basically, this action is extrinsically done because she's doing it because she fears being outcasted from the rest of the school. If she was to do it, it would be intrinsic because she actually enjoys calculus, as she stated multiple times throughout the beginning of the movie, but ultimately she decides against it because of what her friends are telling her to do. In her class, she sits behind Aaron Samuels, the boy she likes. She makes a plan to purposely fail calculus in order to get Aaron to tutor her. This action, even though as dumb as it sounds, was intrinsically motivated because she did it because she thought it would personally reward her by making her spend more time with Aaron. This action was not smart, however, as it was one of the many things that led her life to go downhill rapidly. So, throughout the film, obviously Katie starts to spend more time with the plastics and stuff, and she pretty much becomes like them, and she changes her attitude and pretty much her way of life towards everybody, and she there's just a change throughout herself. So when Miss Norberry confronts Katie about failing on purpose, Katie goes to her friends and she accuses Miss Norberry of being a drug pusher to basically steer away from the fact that she's failing on purpose to get Aaron. She wanted to prove to herself that she wasn't failing on purpose, and she like basically she didn't want to take responsibility for her own actions. So she wrote it in a book called The Burn Book, which is a book that the Plastics used to talk crap about everybody in the school and sell rumors and lies and stuff like that. And the action was extrinsically done because she did it out of spite in Miss Norbury, who was looking out for her, but she also did it to impress the other Plastics. She didn't do it for her own pleasure or anything like that. She just did it solely to look better. So it's at this point in the movie where Katie realizes that like at her low point in the movie that like she's become a pretty much complete monster and she's losing all of her friends. With her spending more time with the Plastics, she's changed as a person, and her real friends, Damien and Janice, have noticed this change, and basically they don't want to be friends with her anymore because she's changed as a person and she's doing all this stuff that's completely going against her character. So, in one scene, at this point, Regina and Katie are not friends. Regina goes out of spite against the Plastics and prints the pages of the Burn Book and releases them to the school, causing chaos. Um, because this Burn Book had a lot of rumors and stuff and accusations about teachers and students throughout the school, the principal wants to find out who was the cause of the Burn Book. And even though Katie didn't fully do it, she took full responsibility for the Burn Book to make her amends with Regina and herself. Um, Pretty much the Plastics, including Regina herself, all wrote the stuff in the Burn Book. The only thing Katie wrote in the Burn Book was the fact that Miss Norbury was like pushing drugs on to students and stuff. And she felt so bad about that one action that she took full responsibility for the Burn Book. Um, this action was intrinsically done because she finally came to terms with how bad of a person she was becoming and how much she was changing. And overall, she just wanted to better herself as a person and stop making excuses for everything. Um, she found this action personally rewarded because she felt like it was a weight off her shoulders. Like she finally realized that the person that she was changing into was not the person that she wanted to be. So this action took a lot of growth for Katie, and I think it's the point in the movie where a lot of her actions went from extrinsically motivated to intrinsically motivated because in the beginning of the movie she was a really innocent girl, and when she came to the school she just changed overall as a person, and she didn't do anything to better herself. She did it for other people. um, she eventually goes to Miss Norbury and apologizes to her and joins the Mathletes. And these actions were intrinsically done because she's finally taking responsibility for herself, and she got herself to join the Mathletes, which is something she enjoys doing because she actually likes calculus. Um, she eventually makes amends with all her friends, and overall, her life just changed for the better. And to finish it off, basically, um, I found the whole concept of intrinsically and extrinsically motivations interesting because I feel like it can be applied to a lot of situations throughout our lives. And this movie, she shifted, basically Katie herself, she shifted from extrinsically motivated actions to intrinsically motivated actions. Overall, she changed as a person and she learned from her actions. A lot of her actions towards the end of the movie were for her and nobody else. It wasn't for praise, for reward, nothing like that. She was doing it because she genuinely felt like she was going to better herself as a person. And as opposed to doing things and actions for other people. So, yeah, that's it. And yeah.